Welcome back, and now we're going to talk to this panel of three marketers about content. So back to you, Priya. Tell me. The big challenge is content, which is complicated by language. So tell me how you grapple with that, and I'll come to you and ask you the same question.
No, I think it certainly is the elephant in the room. I think it would be fair to say that like any other piece of communication, I think marketers are still discovering the content and the right content for this channel or this media. And I think the one who figures it out will be actually the winner, so to speak. For me, I think, it's all about experimenting. And I think that's any new, if you think about television many years ago, it wasn't like everybody knew how to make a piece of advertising or a piece of communication. So we learned along the way, and we learned by doing. So I think a bit of it is for marketers to step in and really experiment with content. And I think, but
is there enough content for getting from your partners?
So
or are you looking beyond your traditional partners?
I think it would be fair to say that there is a world of content that exists from a social context. If you look at Bollywood as content, that is content.
Right.
If you look at, so content may not come in digital in the form that we sort of see it in our preconceived notion of content, but I think everyone's learning. So I would be fair to say that our partners are learning with us. And I think it's companies like Unilever who sort of, structured how you would make advertising, and I think it's time for a company like us to also help and structure how you make content in this world, and that's really what we're doing. We're experimenting, we're learning as we go.
Right. What about you?
So for us,
what have been your peculiar challenges on content?
So first of all, figuring out what the role content will play, and again that varies.
And measuring the ROI on that.
And measuring the ROI.
Yeah.
So for example, for a brand like Synthol, they did a film on being offline is awesome. Now, world is completely online, but having experiences in the real world are also equally exciting.
Right.
Now, that struck a chord, and that got a huge amount of uptake, and people had positive reaction to the film and therefore to the brand. So that's much more a brand point of view that goes through and carries on a life of its own. But there are other places which are much more brass tacks. So a lot of, let's say, Nature's Basket or Yummies will get sold once people know what to do with those ingredients or what those components. So recipes and videos of that nature, or health information. So knowledge about food,
so where
health,
are you getting
etc.
that content? Where are you getting that content?
Various partners. So individual businesses connect with experts, empanel some, and source that information.
Right.
And that becomes the basis for doing it. Sometimes it can be application. So home decor, therefore leading to choices of furniture, and therefore not just content, but also contests where people can participate and get a transformation of their home done. So each business is trying to figure out what is the nature of interest that their audience has, by fulfilling which they will be able to get much greater either affinity to the brand or directly move further on the path of sales.
Right. Now, Karthi, there's something I accuse a lot of marketers of, which is whenever you see content for digital, you see, let's do it cheap, or we can do it cheap. Now, I want each of you to get into this conversation. Does it make sense? It makes no sense in my head, because your media is more or less free, tending to free. Why do you want your content also to be free? We all know, enough grey hair, one is bald, and we all know that, that good content is almost lifeless. It just carries on and on, Why do people insist on cheap content for digital? Why is that?
I clearly see that he is targeting me, so I'll respond directly to you as well.
No, not at all.
Well, I'd like to jump in on that as well, but why don't you finish?
Let me make it very clear, I'm not targeting you.
So let me talk about the two content pieces that over the last couple of years that we've experimented with and I thought worked gangbusters, and they were both cheap, which is why I'm saying that I think you're targeting us.
I haven't seen those pieces. The reach was poor.
Sure.
The media planning was poor.
Media planning was not to you, right? So anyway.
Okay, then it's good. Well planned.
Sure.
Then.
When we merged, we had a story to tell which was arguably a complex story because the investment banker was more interested in the merger story than the retail consumer.
Right.
What we did
this
with
is Ing and
that's right, ING Vysya and Kotak's merger. And so what once we found the brand platform, which was Kona Kotak, what we did with that was we abdicated to the audience itself. We said, we want you to tell us your favorite Konas of this country. And we generated social content out of that, so it was user-generated. 700 cities where Kotak was present on the back of the merger, and we were getting photographs, blog pieces, small pieces of video, and the typical metrics that we see about engagement and so on and so forth, they were all through the roof. They were way better than anything that we had ever done in partnership with expensive agencies or cheap agencies. Cut to very recently when demonetization happened, our partner agency had a very clever idea. They said, let's put a man on a bike and send him cash free across India. There is no cash anyway. Let's see whether he can live off the app and the cards. And we found a documentary filmmaker. We sent him alone. And that's why it was cheap. And we got him to do Bharat Darshan. and he was blogging, videoing every single day. And again, the metrics as we measure it, whether it's Facebook engagement or X or Y.
Let me just tell you, both these campaigns, I've called you up and said they were good campaigns. So,
yeah. So there you go.
So you got nothing. I wasn't referring.
So there's
to
nothing wrong with cheap.
It
shouldn't be the goal. It shouldn't be the brief.
I was not referring to these at all.
Sure.
I was not referring to any of the three representatives here. I was talking about people who say we can make a video film at 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. You know that, and then. Actually, it's almost a reverse multiplier effect. It's a disaster. Then.
Of course,
nothing
no doubt
happens.
about that.
So I wanted to tell me, Priya, what is? How do you view?
So I think firstly,
suppose I went to procurement at Viewers, and there was a film which is going to run only on digital.
Yep.
Will I get 1/3 the budget?
So I think it's horses for courses. Let me say that. I don't think it's a one size fits all.
Right.
So I think there is content we want to make that has a life which demands, say, it being reasonable, cheap.
Right.
Call it what you may. And there is content out there for which we put out, the works of what we would for any campaign that we would do. So I think it depends would be the right answer. I don't think, I want to draw like a broad brush across all content. So I think there is tentpole content that we do which would be the same sort of budgets as we'd have for television or print or whatever else, traditional media. And then there is content which we believe is, quick, it's not going to last.
You have 2 days, 3 days.
Experimental, and therefore it's cheap. So I think it's fair to say probably the balance of thinking is a lot about this content, but I think we've done content which is as good as any sort of television piece of advertising or anything else.
Right. And now the one more lovely sort of buzzword is viral. Three of you, got all the experience in the world. Do you ever ask for your agency to give you something viral? Does it ever happen? Has it happened?
No, it hasn't happened. And certainly that's not the brief, but what we do look for is like good old principles, right? What's the insight, what's of interest? And so try and look at things that will engage. And we have struggled with it. There were times when we said, this is not an ad, this is not a communication, it's a point of view. And therefore, we can't put our brand name too strongly. In fact, we didn't put it all the way through at all. And we said, okay, maybe at the end. And then how will people know it is? So we've gone to extremes of trying to find that balance where we're creating something that's of interest to somebody, and because of that interest, they would want to share it. Right? And then thereby write on that. So I give the Synthol example, that worked well.
Right.
Because it was a point of view about life that resonated. And so I think when you find that, so the thing is not to expect the outcome, but to focus on the input. And I think if you do the diligence and rigor about that input, it's a bit of luck, right? Even the best creators of the content, no songwriter will tell you every song is a hit. No filmmaker will tell you every filmmaker is. So when content experts don't get it right, brands may not get it right.
Right, sure.
So I think if you go at it with the right principles, you have a better chance at it.
So I think, listen, if you do things that matter to people, then it's likely to have talkability. I think we've had great success when we found things like, let's take the Surf Excel Ramadan film, for example. Got incredible talkability because it was a moment that mattered to consumers. I mean, it was something that people weren't talking about. Is the way you celebrate the festival and really looking at sort of the background spirituality of the festival and not really the rituals behind it. And it got great talkability. So if you really look at what matters to people, you're likely to get talkability and shareability.
Karthi?
So I think you're certainly right to castigate naive marketers for catching on to the latest buzzword, and viral is pretty old buzzword now.
Right.
But that I think we should take as read now. I think the key issue is actually about attribution, which is true for all content. I find that 7 out of 10 pieces of content are arguably entertaining and shareable as well, but nobody will know what brand paid for it or why the bloody brand is in this picture at all, even if the logo is slapped right across the screen throughout the frame. So my real filter is context and relevance, and if there's a reason for the brand to have a role in that piece of content, then we've done our job. After that, of course, it has to be interesting or else nobody is ever going to share it. And those need to be the two filters, I think. It needs to be interesting to them and relevant to us.
Sorry, Priya, you wanted to add to that?
No.
I wanted to add. So actually, sometimes timing works beautifully. And so recently we had India launching those satellites all in one go. And because Godrej Aerospace played a part in that, so usually we would end up crafting or being ready with what we had to say because a lot of other permissions and things to be dotted on. And so by the time the news is 2 days old, it never had traction.
Right.
This time we managed to be ready. So that afternoon itself we put it out.
Right.
Now, typically our posts about Godrej, the organization, we get 5,000, 10,000 views, which is good now. This got 2.5 lakh views within a day because it was very topical. So sometimes it's also timing. Sometimes it's content, sometimes it's a creative idea. But sometimes it's just timing. If you get that right, then you can get that.
I'll stay with you and ask both of you the same question. How much time do you spend on measuring your digital spends, as opposed to TV, where who spends time measuring anything? Now, how much time do you spend measuring?
So digital, we can't do without measuring it.
So how much time do you spend?
So for the brands and pieces, it's 100% of the time spent on that brand on measurement. Because it begins with...
In a typical day?
Oh, in that sense.
What is it?
So it's not that frequent, because we track...
Your product manager will be spending every day?
No, even I spend time tracking, because we do big stories on the brand twice a week and so on. So we're looking for what the response is, because then we can shape the content appropriately over a period of time. So that kind of a performance tracking we do much more regularly. But paid campaigns aren't that frequent. And so each time you do a round of paid campaign, you've preset expectations, you track in the middle in case you want to course correct. And certainly when the spend is done, you take a look at what has happened so that you fix it the next time around.
What about you, Priya?
I think digital is inherently measurable just by the nature of it. I think my sort of controversial point of view is probably that we measure it too much. Yeah, because I think if we subject all pieces of communication to the same level of measurement,
you'll never do a TV ad again.
I think we'll never make an ad in our life.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think it is fair to say that probably, you know, we're at the other extreme, because it's inherently measurable, to constantly be measuring it. So I think one of the things I would argue is let's measure everything to the same extent. And Unilever, of course, we measure everything, but I think let's measure everything equally. Because otherwise we run the risk of measuring the newest thing the most.
So I'm a bit of a Luddite. We're latecomers to the spending party on digital itself, because my view has
spending part itself.
Yes. So measurement to dur ki baat hai, because it's been my view that if I can't fulfill online, then I don't have, I shouldn't be spending online. Which is why 811 has been a manna from heaven. It's been a godsend. 811 digital spending, every single day, half an hour is spent by the supreme leadership of my firm. So that's how serious we are about it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank all of you, and hope all of you learn something, and hope you take back a few examples of what you can do with your media budgets and how to navigate this complex space of mobile marketing. Thank you so much.